Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Quack&Co, the channel where everything is under 10 minutes all the time, every time. And this is going to be our Why It's Different series, why a game is worth paying attention to. And in this game, this time, is going to be Mythwind, a game currently on Kickstarter. This is going to be from OOOM, Out of My Mind, I believe that's what it stands for. But Mythwind is a game that absolutely deserves this format. Mythwind is a game that is different it's just plain different. You see, Mythwind is going to be the first board game that I'm aware of that you don't really win or lose or ever really truly finish the game, although you probably do finish the game in a manner of speaking. You see, Mythwind is going for the Stardew Valley, for the Animal Crossing, for any tycoon or sim game you've ever played, where the goal isn't a win condition so much as the goal is building and growing and developing your own little empire in this game that's going to be the town in front of you that you've traveled to this valley, and you're starting to build everything up. You're starting to work on your engine as you try to build out the various buildings and locations and go through a degree of story in this game. But you don't win. You don't lose. You never finish a session. You can keep playing until you're bored. There are certain midpoints where you can just say, okay, great, we've played for an hour and a half and, we just finished the season and we can move on. But you never actually have a timer past the changing of the seasons. There's no reason past that. Now, there are goals, there are things to go for. By the end of this season, do X, Y, and Z, or perhaps you'll lose a resource or two. There are small little consequences and things that will move you forward, but it's not a win or a loss so much as the changing of the game around you, so much as the changing of your resources, of your engine as you play. This is a game where I'm going to say it again because it is really something we haven't seen in the board game space. You don't win, you don't lose, you don't ever finish. Now, when I say you don't ever finish, that inherently is going to come with a bit of a caveat. At a certain point in Mythwind, you'll have been able to build all of the buildings that are available. The game's going to come with the buildings. This in front of me is a prototype, so take that into account, but the final game is going to have stacks of buildings or things you can do, and at a certain point you'll have built all of that, and you'll have gone through all that content. You'll have gone through all the event cards that the game provides. You'll have seen all the adventures that you can go on. There's going to be a deck of adventure cards you can go through. There's going to be decks of challenges, all the content that the game gives you. It is absolutely possible to go through that, and then you're done. Now, you can keep playing after that, but yes, some of the luster of the game will go away to an extent. Even games like Stardew Valley that can be played forever do have certain key endpoints. Games like Roller Coaster Tycoon, once you've built through and finished all the parks, still have things that you can continue going on past that, but at the same point, some of the reason to continue might disappear. It depends how much you enjoy the process of the building and exploration in and of itself. And Mythwind's going to have that. It's going to have that with the world that you build out over here, the key world where you're actually building out the towns, the locations, things will improve your engine. Meanwhile, you're also building out your asymmetric characters. This is a game where you're going to have an asymmetric characters. It is a cooperative game, by the way, a game where you can't win or lose and has no endpoint. Almost by definition, I imagine has to be a cooperative game. Maybe not, I could be wrong. But you're going to have the asymmetric characters that each have their own little puzzle that you're trying to play through. They each have their own little miniature puzzle of how they generate revenue that's going to be utilized to gather more coins, to get more resources, to build more buildings. You build so that you can build, and you play so that you can continue playing. But that is what Mythwind is. It is not more than that. It is not less than that. It is a game about construction. It is a game about a living, breathing world. And that's why it gets this series, because this particular mini-series of games worth paying attention to highlight a reason why a game is notable. It highlights a reason why a game is different, why a game might be worth adding to your collection, why it won't be lining up against other games in your collection. Now, while saying that, I will say Mythwind is a game that in its current state is not for me. I need that driving force forward. I need the reason to keep going. For myself, I was tempted by the promise of what Mythwind is, and the idea of a game where you just build for the sake of building does appeal to me to a certain extent. But then when I'm actually in that engine, when I'm actually in that game, I have some issues with how it drives things forward, some complaints that might potentially hurt mine and potentially hurt your experience. Things like trying to decide which action is more efficient only really matters if it's going to actually be a quick decision. Taking 3 or 4 minutes to try to figure out the most efficient way to do things isn't going to help you if in those 3 or 4 minutes you could have just taken 3 or 4 turns that were less efficient. Because there's no time crunch, because there's no opponent crunch, because there's no crunch at all past the desire to build, if you're choosing between something that is a complicated way of looking at something that might be more efficient versus just rapidly taking 2 actions, rapidly taking 2 actions is going to be the way to go, so that removes some of the strategy from a game like Mythwind. Now, you can absolutely set challenges for yourself, you try to do X, Y, and Z in X number of turns. Now, the game's going to even give you those challenges, but the consequences aren't punishing enough for you to necessarily think or be concerned with that impact. Often, playing the game quickly in Mythwind is going to be the most strategic thing you can do in terms of getting to that endpoint. An additional factor is going to be the nature of wanting to unlock everything in these games. Remember the days of cheat codes, remember the days of looking around online trying to find some way that you can move forward in a game system, and cheat codes have more and more rescinded to the background of the video game space because everything is so easily available that there's not even a sense of accomplishment of having a cheat code. There used to be cheat codes passed on slips of paper from one friend to another, up, down, spacebar, jump, whatever it was, and those are hard to find. And then the age of the internet came along, and cheat codes were just, websites just had all the cheat codes published, and it was no longer a challenge, and cheat codes became less and less of a thing, because there was even a sense of accomplishment in just having a cheat code, and that was taken away. But now, in Mythwind, if you ever played one of these app-based games, if you ever played any game about building, and you wanted to unlock the next point, the next level in that game, and you paid $5, or maybe you didn't pay $5, but you attempted to, Mythwind won't have that problem. If you ever want to unlock something, you can literally just grab the building and put it on your board, ta-da, it's there. It's an interesting problem in the sense that in a game system where the goal is just to build and go forward, it does rely on the players self-restricting themselves from just accessing that content, and many will. But many might be tempted to just grab a few buildings, put them out, and you just skipped a few levels, no problem. Oh, you're not selling your stuff enough, you want to save yourself 10 minutes? Rotate a dial, and now you're better at selling boots than another player. So it does have some of those problems, some of those balances around a game that offers you the desire to build, offers you all this content, and the paywall is your decision to not pick it up off the table. So again, interesting problems, interesting things going on in Mythwind, but that's the nature of being a pioneer in its space. I think Mythwind is very different. I think it is worth paying attention to, and depending on what kind of player you are, you may well enjoy this concept. You may well enjoy this world where the goal and desire is just about building. There's nothing driving you forward past your desire to complete and go through all of the content. I'm happy Mythwind exists. Either it's going to be satisfying for a tremendous number of players, or it will inspire others to take a look at the board game space and see what ways they can innovate, what ways they can be different in, what ways they can contribute, or even just piggyback off of what Mythwind is trying to do, but taking their own spin and approach in it. We've seen this in the board game space time and time again. Deck building, asymmetric characters, stories, apps, any number of different innovations in the board game space that are then picked up and adopted and become the status quo. They become normal to jump into these various systems and see how they work for others. That's Mythwind, a game by OOM Games currently on Kickstarter, and a game that is absolutely different and therefore absolutely worth paying attention to. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Quack&Co, and have a good one.